Week 1 dub, baby. We're going to start talking about that and how we feel about it here on the Sooner or Later Sports Show. Thank y'all for pulling up. We appreciate it. I'm your host, Jay. We got Coop right here on the screen. Thanks for hitting us up here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Just give us 5 anyway. And gift it. So, on today's episode of the Sooner or Later Sports Show, me and Coop's going to dive into offensive thoughts, defensive thoughts, and we'll jump a little bit into special teams. We're also going to want to get your fan thoughts, so please hop in these comments if you're watching on YouTube Live. Tell us what y'all think. Ask your questions. We'll break in between each segment with a Q&A session. So, we're going to jump in here. Coop, I got to say, my man, it was awesome. Here's the first opening statement. Then I got to pass to you, Coop. Opening statement. I want everybody to do me a favor. Thank y'all for being here in the chat. At what point, and I want you to be honest with me and yourselves, right? At what point during this game did you feel like Oklahoma was not going to win by more than 4 scores? Tell me when. Put that in the comment. Be honest with me and yourself. At what point did you think that? Because I'm going to tell you, I never thought that at one moment at any instance of this game. Coop, Friday night, the environment with the fans, the people there, it felt good. How'd you feel about the environment itself there for one of our first Friday night games in a long time?
I felt like the environment was that everybody wanted just football to be here. The talk season being over. And I think that maybe it's because, was it 2.5 years ago, we get the A&M cat who says, breaking news, OU and Texas about to head out to the SEC. This is going down. And I think that tonight, or I guess Friday night, was just the fruition of all that waiting. Everybody was ready for the season to be here. Did it feel different? And just walking around, it seems like everybody just wanted to see some football. Also, it felt like everybody was prepared for it to be hot as hell out there. And when the weather let up a little bit, I think that was exciting. But also, like waiting on the defense and watching the defense, I felt like everybody was excited, to see that.
It's true. I liked how the streets were full of Sooner fans. There were people everywhere. A lot of your tailgating looked like the game did step up some. We still got levels to get to as we prepare for infiltration from SEC people, but I did feel like we stepped things up. There were a lot of people. I mean, the crowds were a lot bigger and better. The Walk of Champions had a nice crowd around it. It felt like we cared. And I'm saying that not as any type of shady way or anything or throwing shade at fans. It's more of you see this when you go to SEC campuses. When I've been down there at Death Valley for a game, bro, it's miles of tailgating. I went to Tuscaloosa and I watched them play Tennessee. I think they had like 4 acres of land that's just literally tents. And it doesn't stop moving, right? I've been out to Neyland and checked that out. There is miles of it, right? So my point is that's where we're going to have to up our game and show up for that portion of it. And I think we did a really good job. I think it was a great first start, especially for a Friday night. That's the one thing I wanted to commend Sooner fans for.
I got down there on campus right around noon. And so to the guys who welcomed me while I was parking my car, I literally hop out the car. Guys look over at me and they're like, "You want a shotgun of beer?" And I couldn't say no, could not say no. And so now they did hand me a fruity beer, and your boy hasn't shotgun a beer in quite a long time. And so, but I held my own. So pretty good. So that's when I knew, like, all right, it's go time, because it was not just kids. I mean, it was one of them was a dad too. And so Got out there, got down, got to hang out with Parker Thune a little bit, see the Boz, talk to Teddy. We talked to Gabe. It just, everybody seemed like ready to go.
Yeah. The energy was good. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out to start the show. I felt like the energy was fantastic. So thank y'all, Sooner fans, Sooner Nation, everybody that, pulled up. It felt like we cared. All right. Let's lead into the first thing we want to talk about. I feel like, Coop, we probably should open things up on a good side, on a good note, on an exciting note, on a happy note. Coop, did you recognize something crazy about our special teams?
Yeah, I did.
Did you notice that we not only made one, not two, but we made 3 field goals in a row? Coop, did you see that we made a field goal of 50 yards?
And of course, where we were sitting, you couldn't see like how good it was. It was like even all 3 of them. I was watching the refs more than where the ball was because we didn't really have a good angle, from where we're at, and so we had to go back and look at the film, and they all looked pretty dadgum true. And so that's It is what it is. Like it's Keltner went out there, and yeah, that's what I said. As long as dude doesn't want to kick no fast food, I don't care if it's a dumpling, I don't care if it's empanadas, nothing. Do not kick any food, and at all. Stay away from kicking food. Kick footballs. Call it a day.
Bro, we made 3 field goals. I'm going to put it this way, right? I said this in a video I dropped not too long ago for Sooner fans and pointed out something, how y'all were all right or whatnot. I'll make sure to do that series going forward for the rest of the season based upon your reactions, where I feel like you're right, and then we'll talk about some of the stuff you missed. You'll probably get some of it here, but I'll repeat it in a video that's, of course, more condensed. Coop, people don't need to know who the kicker is this year. Ain't that crazy? Right? Last year, it was funny because people were saying, I should not know the name of the kicker. They should just go out there, kick the ball, and go. We shouldn't be talking about him. We shouldn't be talking about like having Dicker, the kicker, on our team. We shouldn't be saying anything about kickers. Keltner's name should not be known. This is probably the only time, hopefully, for the rest of the season, we hear this man's name. Even if it's a game winner, nobody wants to know who the kicker's name is. We got a kicker, y'all. He looked good.
Get it in position. And no, I'm with you. But special teams just looked, it looked coordinated. I think the only yip I think I had was Tatum got pushed into got pushed into Peyton Bowen at one point, and we said that could have been scary just because he kind of went sideways right into Bowen's kind of upper body. So, but yeah, man, it was good, and I don't know. Like, you guys let me know in the comments like what you think. Like, are you going to be happy now, or is it still going to be 3 or 4 games, several, because for me, I still want to see it in a pressure situation. I still want to see, it at the end of a half. I want to see, it being in a close game. But he did what he was supposed to do. You do, and this whole show tonight is going to be about doing what is, taking care of the task in front of you. So far, he's aces.
Exactly. We've got a kicker, ladies and gentlemen. And that 50-yarder was beautiful. And it had extra yards behind it, right? I'll rewatch the game like 3 times.
Yeah.
I got my 4th rewatch probably after this because I want to go through and kind of fine-tooth comb some of the possessions that I looked at. And so we'll get into that in a bit. Thank y'all for pulling up. Please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Go ahead and wipe your feet. We appreciate y'all joining. We're going to talk defense first. I think we should go ahead and start this bad boy on a good note because this segment will probably go a lot faster than others. So we're going to dive into our thoughts behind the defense. If you have questions for us around the defense, feel free to throw them in the comment section now. At the end of our breakdown, we will go through some of those questions. I'm starring them as we speak. So we'll do that. Coop, I am taking a gander at this. I want to start here at the defensive line, and this is my main feeling behind this defensive line, dog. We got competitive depth.
My friends, everybody, toast to competitive depth. Take 2 drinks.
I'm watching the film on this one, and it's funny because we had very big-time questions about what that defensive line was going to look like. especially with the younger players that we've been curious about if they're going to show out. Marcus Strong gets in the game, takes advantage of it, gets his 2 sacks. Grayson Hall gets in there, gets his sack and a half that was shared with Champ Sanders, right? Ethan Downs punches the ball in, gets a forced fumble. Coop, I am impressed that every single player on the defensive line that got in there, Dejon Terry, Dominic Williams, they found a way to be disruptive. Jaden Jackson, Ethan Downs, PJ Adebaware, R. Mason Thomas, period. All of them were disruptive. How did you feel about that defensive line?
I mean, from the interior, right from the get-go, that's one of the things I was just trying to do is watch the defensive line. Like, were they changing the line of scrimmage? Were they playing in the backfield? And I think from the defensive tackle standpoint, I said this on my breakdown, I mean, the defensive tackles were so disruptive that they were changing the defensive line, and they're making it hard for the edge guys to actually get through because they were there first, and which they should be. And it wasn't just one guy; it was multiple guys. And for anybody who was wondering why Jaden Jackson was out there, I mean, we knew this cat was different. A lot of guys were starting to call that, when he committed, like, this guy's just different. And so, I'm kind of speechless at this point because, again, it's Temple. They're terrible. They may have one of the worst offensive lines in the country, but you have the task in front of you and you have to tackle that task. No excuses. And we will touch on that a lot tonight. But no excuses. The defensive line went out and did exactly what they were supposed to.
Great point. And that was one thing I saw with the way that the rotations were going, right? You summed it up perfectly. Those edges, those tackles were pushing in so much. And as the edges came in, you could see that the Temple offensive lineman tried to stop those edges from coming because they were initially very disruptive to Brock. Like, he started the game 0 for 5, and you could tell that it was a lot of the pressure. He felt pressure coming at him, and that's the one thing I'll give that young dude props for. But it was the problem with him feeling that pressure was you could tell that he was scared. He was fearful every time he dropped back initially. I was cracking up because he'd see somebody come, and he'd just throw that thing down immediately. And so we did a really good job of getting that pressure. Defensive tackle-wise, right? When you started to see this shift from JJ to Dominic to Terry, which Terry was really good in this game too. He had a very funny moment, by the way. I'm not sure if anybody recognized this. I saw it on the replay, and it made me laugh. I'm going to have to clip it and post it on social media pretty soon. But when he got that fumble, I don't think people recognize what he did. Some may have, but I laughed because he gathered the fumble as if he was going to lay on it, right? He realized nobody was close enough. He stood up over the ball, picked it up, and tried to run with it. I'm just like, wait a minute, dog. Just get the fumble. You ain't got to do all of, but you don't have to do all the theatrics. But I was cracking up like, what? Like, did he really just stand up over the ball like this, pick it up, and then try to run? It's like the ball was so far away from the pile of people trying to pretend they were fighting for it. He tried to find a way to get himself a score out of it. I wasn't even mad about that.
Dude wanted to eat. I mean, it's been a while. It's been a while. And, again, and I saw somebody in the comment, like, a lot of people were, I mean, there were multiple times that Dom Williams was, getting triple teamed. And that was disrespectful from the get-go. And then later in the game, it looked really, really funny because then all of a sudden Jaden Jackson started, and then the next guy. So I think from what we're seeing is, yes, it is Temple, but you cannot. I mean, if you're going to do max protect, somebody's going to have, even with max protect, somebody is going to have a one-on-one. And I think these defensive tackles are all 4 of those top 4 guys are very, very able to win one-on-ones consistently. And that's what we're looking for.
It's all we ask for from the squad, right? We ask for them to show up, show out in that capacity. Let's move on to the linebacker room, right? Linebacker room was one that, I'm going to be honest, Coop. This is what I got to say about the linebacker room. Shout out to Zach Alley, right? First off, he called the whole game. So y'all should feel good about this defense now, right? Our biggest concerns last year was that when you had Ted Roof running it too much, it didn't feel right. Zach Alley called the whole game, and it looked like it. The way he had things set up, my goodness, it was. Mwah! The linebacker is the most important position in a Brent Venables defense, and it appears that we have it exactly how we need it. Going from Stutz to Kobe to Kip to Kanik, right? To Carter to Omosigo, Cheetah, Kendall Doby, that entire setup, and we still ain't seen Deshaun McCullough yet. Cool. Mm-hmm. When I'm watching this is the one thing I want to point out first. The leadership in that linebacker room is unreal. And I say that in the best way because when I watched Kobe McKenzie get in that game and he started smacking Dejon Terry on the ass or Grayson Halton on the ass to move to this gap, to move to that gap, they understood the scheme. That changes a lot of things for us going forward because now you have not one, not two, not three, but at least 4 dudes that can command how everybody is supposed to act on defense. How did you feel about that linebacker room?
You got it right. How many months ago were we having conversations about Danny being out there and, kind of making jokes about BV wanted him to be 2 inches to the side, and that wasn't, he didn't understand that, to now you got those 4 guys that have been not only a problem from the running game perspective, but they know the system. And that starts with Danny. I mean, it absolutely starts with Danny. Guys, Danny is quickly, with everything he does on the field, the stuff that now he's doing off the field, he's quickly, putting himself up there with an all-time Sooner favorite. I think Baker still right now is the reigning champ for, this current iteration of Sooner football. But Danny, I don't think you can overtake Baker. I think that you get in there, and he is going to be a guy that anytime that you see Danny up on the board this season and seasons after, everybody is going to lose it. Everybody is going to be 100% full volume in cheering for Danny Stutzman. But then, he's got his buddies next to him. Kip Lewis. Kip was everywhere. I mean, absolutely everywhere. You saw him in pass coverage. You saw him backing out to the flats. And then Kobe. I didn't know if I was expecting Kobe to be that level yet. And I heard that Lewis Carter was going to be a problem. So, I mean, Jay, that's with those guys being able to do some of the things that they're doing, that front unit didn't give a lot of work to be had by the defense backs. And that is, again, they played in a box. This whole game was pretty much played in a box after the first drive of the game. But the linebackers cooked. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. I did see a couple places to where there were coachable moments, which is you're going to have coachable moments. But it was in pass coverage and proper syncing. And I kind of brought that up to you, but. You guys, Crimson Missile, Lewis Carter, and then, everybody, let's just take a second and, be excited about even Jaren Kanik on that blocked punt, or I guess the fumble on the punt return. That made me very happy, not because it put us over the spread, but because he got his chance to be rewarded with some of that hard work on the special teams. And so, man, just an absolute great day for all the linebackers.
Yeah, the room looked really good. I liked how Stutzman was you could tell he could easily tell people where to go, and he didn't have as many concerns around. You didn't see very many fire drills. I was listening to the Oklahoma breakdown early this morning when I went to the gym, and that was something that Teddy really pointed out was you didn't see a bunch of fire drills on the defensive side of the ball. And that was the one thing I noticed the most was it wasn't a bunch of frantic running around. There were shifts. There were movements. The only time you saw somebody run is when a dude went in motion, right? And you could tell at that point we were running man, so of course he needs to run with the wide receiver to make sure he stops him. But when you start getting into some zone stuff, which I like, there was the one play when G-Baby got his sack, you had a couple of linebackers go in the middle, and you had Trace Ford go out to the flat. And as soon as Ford went to the flat, G Baby went around that tackle, and the quarterback saw the linebackers to his left, tried to move to his right, and G Baby was right there in his throat.
Right there.
Playing complimentary ball like that, fantastic masterwork by Zach Alley. And the best part is, I didn't see a single exotic type blitz. It was just right in your face. The only person, there was two struggles I noticed in the game that kind of jumped out to me was with Lewis Carter and Samuel Masigo. So with Lewis Carter, that deep catch, we talked about this not too long ago in the green room with PG. You could tell that Lewis was thinking about trying to cover the inside, and he almost basically bumped into Stutzman. I don't know if they touched, but he basically ran in kind of across him. He should have backed up because the guy that went to the flat was his man. He could have got there. He could have either knocked it down, he could have picked it, or he would have tackled the dude in the air and he would have dropped the pass, right? So there was that, and there was another play with Lewis where it looked like he over pursued. He had the wrong angle. Same thing with Sammy. I noticed that when he was out there was a couple of plays where he would under pursue, or he took the wrong angle. And that ended up exposing him to giving up, 4 more yards that we shouldn't have given up. So totally fixable things that are really good to have on film, especially playing a team like Temple, right? It's not a game where, and I asked this question at the beginning of the show on purpose, I wanted to know, at what moment did y'all really think that we weren't going to win this game by 3 touchdowns, right? Or 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns? I knew that we were going to win this game by 5 touchdowns minimum, and we covered the spread, which was 42.5. It wasn't a situation to be concerned. So let's talk about the DBs. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button if you're new to the channel. Subscribe. Wipe your feet when you enter our crib. Cool. I see why Phil still says we have the best secondary room in the country. I get it now. Shout out to Midland Sooner. We met Midland Sooner. Thanks for the $10.
Yep.
Got an emoji that you put on here yet waving at us. Thank you for that. We met Midland and took a picture while we were there at the field. Great time. Y'all warmed our heart with all that love that you gave us. But that DB room, Coop. My goodness, I think we have something special. How did you feel about that? We'll lump Kendall Dolby into this group now with the cheetah roll he did. How'd you feel about it?
I mean, I think that you were excited about a lot of the guys on the in the front seven, but I still think Kendall Dolby was probably the most dynamic player on the field, probably my defensive MVP for the game. Dude just looked different when he was blitzing. And he was the only one really allowed to blitz throughout the game. And most of the time that's because he had nobody to cover. So might as well get up there and get you some. He looked terrific. Here's what I could say, Jay, is the 2 corners, we sat Woody and Gentry came in and kind of played a little sparingly. But
I think he had 16 total snaps from PFF. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just running clock at that point, so he didn't have to do much of anything, which is great. But lets him get out and move around a little bit. But between Kenai Walker and Des Malone, those are 2 big guys. That's 6'1" and 6'2". Those guys are massive. They looked massive. I just Des got himself. Was it Des or Kenai that got the pick off
Kenai.
of
that
off
was
of
a Kenai.
So I thought, yeah, because he was. They were. Let's see here. Des was on our side of the field, but
yep,
bro, it cracked me up. I say the play of the game is definitely the pick where Dolby messed it, and he basically ripped the ball out of the receiver's hands, and Kenai grabs it and heads back. We've kind of taken friendly banter shots back and forth with Kenai already. And, didn't have to see much from them out there on the boundary. They kept everything out in front of him, out in front of themselves. They never had an opportunity to go deep. And so, man, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about that room. When they were called upon, they did their job. There were no oops. with the guys running wide open. There were a couple times that that guys were in between zones and getting passed off, and the quarterback didn't have any time. But you got to give kudos and more props out to the DB side.
I liked how Kendall Doby walked out there, and my favorite part about his game was the way that he blitzes. Because when he gets out there in his set, this is what was fascinating. He'd go to the set, he'd basically come up to the line, he'd back up, he'd move forward, he'd back up. And I'm pointing that out because he made it to where that quarterback was afraid he was going to blitz him. Like, he got his sack, which we all know Katie came on the show earlier this year and told us that he prefers sacks over interceptions, even though he pitched that fit when he knocked that ball down. So I think he thought that they caught it, right? I think he was freaking out about that, but he just completely went ballistic. So glad that play didn't end up that way. I'm glad we got the pick, but he had that quarterback. He had him spooked. He had him shook. And we all know ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. He had that dude terrified every time he came close to the line because he's like, oh, shit, he's about to blitz on my left side. He's going to blitz on my left side. And then he'd back up into coverage, or did he come in? And it was a masterclass of how you can disguise the way you're going to blitz that I want an Omasigo, who's going to also play Cheetah, to also recognize. I want him to learn that skill set. Doby had that dude in a blender. And then, of course, like you mentioned, Gentry got to play a little bit. Des Malone looked good. He looked big. He looks like a ginormous human being. He had the size and everything. If I was to be critical anywhere in this secondary, it's going to be probably Jacoby Johnson, right? He looked young. He made a couple of decisions where I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't you shouldn't have over pursued there or something in the coverage. You noticed a few situations where he looked a little bit out of place, but that was the youth part, right? And that kind of even goes to what everybody has said in here, right? Venables mentioned in his presser, you want to play more young. He wanted to play more young players last year. He recognized he should have.
Yeah.
You play those young players, what happens, Coop? They make mistakes because they're young. Right. Yeah, they're getting experience, but they're going to make mistakes because they're young.
It's going to happen.
Exactly. It's bound to happen. And so giving them that grace, and I'm going to talk about that grace a lot more when we talk about the offensive line and the offense in general in a minute. Yeah. But the good thing about that secondary is, Hardy getting his pick. Shout out to him. He got an interception his first time in high school playing football. He's also got an interception his first time playing college football. So he's kind of kept his streak alive. Now he needs to do that at the NFL. First start, got to get an interception in order to keep that going, and then we can give him mad props. But no, he did. They did a good job overall in the secondary, being where they were supposed to be, except for the young guys kind of getting messed up. Secondary with the size, Kanai plays at his size, Dez plays at his size. We're going to be really hard to throw on this season, and I say that because I know that Sooner Cowboy has been pointing in here about all the other teams and how they performed in their games, as if all of us didn't just cover our spread, right? We all covered our spread. But Auburn's got Cam Coleman, the young freshman. Alabama's got Ryan Williams, the freshman, who's 17 years old, right? A lot of these teams got these young players at wide receiver we're going to have to be able to account for. And the good thing is, from D-line, the edges to linebackers to secondary, I think we have the defense for it. How do you feel about the defense as a whole going into this season now?
You see guys taking steps forward, and I didn't say anything about the safeties. Peyton Bowen really didn't have much of a job to do.
Right.
We saw Billy ball out. And RSJ, man, I wish I had more time just to talk about him because dude looks different this year. So, man, I fully believe that. Again, defense has the task in front of them. What did you do with that task? Well, you did everything you were supposed to. And playing straight up, playing vanilla, you didn't see much, there's no shenanigans at all. So, man, the final thought on the defense is just that this guy, this unit it is what we've been talking about. You heard about it in the fall camp. You've seen, all these accolades starting to come through. If OU gets good, props, it has been because of the rumors around the defense. And so, to quote a movie, it's relieving to hear that the rumors and the gossips are true. This defense is legit, and we are going to get a chance to see them probably do pretty much more of the same thing here this next week too, because our boys Houston, they looked a little rough. But you're going to get out, and with 84 total players played across everything, you got to see some pups. And you also got to see, there's a couple guys that were held out that could have gone and played. Eli Bowen was held out. Woody Washington held out. Expect to see those guys coming back in here and getting some snaps next week.
That's the good thing, is that we know that those players will be back next week. And Houston, the spread is already out. The initial spread for this game, y'all ready for this? 27.5. We are 27.5 point favorites in this game. Kind of expected. That's pretty good. I think it's going to go up as the week goes on, as we prepare for this game. So thank y'all for pulling up. Let's get to y'all's questions here on the defensive side of the ball. We've had some, of course, there's a lot of O-line questions in here. I totally get. We'll get to those because we're going to talk about that on the other side. Duck, what it do? He asks, what do you think of Jaden Jackson's play? Cool.
It was beautiful. I we got to see some highlights. I got to see, you saw Jaden a couple times work on the swim move that we saw during the spring game scrimmage.
Yep.
It was pretty fun to watch. So yeah, to see the new guys like Boganowski, Hardy, Powers, JJ, Stone getting in there. Stone was very, very emotional, but Jaden Jackson, we heard a lot of praise, and he showed out and he did exactly what he was supposed to.
Yep, and even mentioning the young guys in the secondary with Boganowski getting his first crack shot of the season, that had everybody shaking their head like, ooh, the audible oohs and shookness was amazing, right?
Everybody.
It was crazy. Everybody. On top of that, hey man, RP3, we y'all know I praise RP3 not only because his pops be pulling up on a regular basis, but because I told you I think he's gonna be a dude. He was looking really good at Cheetah, and his blitzing, if he can get it down like Dolby does, he's gonna get sacks out the wazoo and force strip sacks all the time, because he was right in there and he was causing issues. He was helping create sacks because he would get wide enough on that outside to where the quarterback would tuck in and go in, and then next thing you know, bow, somebody leveled his butt. Shout out to that. Great question there, Duck. We appreciate it. Onikuno, our boy Sean pulled up. Appreciate it. We should force 6 turnovers every game. Why doesn't every team do that? Hey, man, I've been wanting the same thing, dog. I've been telling teams we do that. I guess they decided to follow suit, man. Coop, did you call somebody on this one?
This reminds me of the Happy Gilmore quote when he makes the hole-in-one. He's like, man, why not just try to do that every single play? And he's like, yeah. But the turnovers are going to – this does a lot. Number one, you now start looking at more conservative play. If you become a team with a reputation that you got to be careful because these guys are going for the ball, then instead of running freely, you're more concerned about holding on to the ball, not wanting to throw the ball in certain areas. That makes you question and double take and make slower decisions on how you throw the ball. But no, I'd say this is there's a lot of guys who are going to start getting reputations. Boganowski's one of those guys. And, you make business decisions when Boganowski's in the game. And people are going to know that number, and they're going to be terrified of him. And so I think 6 is, we're number 1 in the country in turnover margin right now. Not the SEC, the country.
The country.
Number 1.
We're number 1 on that one right now, right? And that's the one thing that I like. So we had a couple of questions in here that I thought was interesting. Duck with a great point. Zach Alley got that game ball, baby. That tells you everything you need to know, right? Let's look. I got a couple more before we jump into the next topic on the defensive side. We had Jenna And Zayas B. Lou asking a couple of questions. We'll get to that in just a minute. Sooner Legends, what's good, Mike? He asked the question, when will we see Deshaun McCullough? So last I remember hearing BV talk about is that he's just kind of a day-to-day situation. So I'm going to be honest. I sense we'll probably see him Tulane. I don't think we see him next week. I don't think you really have a reason for him to play then. I think Tulane will be a better game to try to figure out if you really when you're gonna really need to see him there.
And it's a toe. And so he was still in the boot. There were no plans on him, and I've been answering in the chat. Michael Patterson McDonald, we were hanging out with his dad before the game. He was held out. Isaiah Autry was held out because of injury. You saw Nick Six was down on the sideline. He was never dressed out. There's a lot of guys who are going to be guys who are going to see some time. I didn't see Jaden Rowe, and I don't know if that's injury or just not rotation because Devon Jordan got some time in. I saw some of the walk-ons get some time in at the end. I think that if McCullough is ready, you want to have him go for Tulane. If he's not, it shows right now that you've got your bases covered, and I don't think that you're going to see him until he is actually ready.
Exactly. And so to answer all the questions around, did these players play? Yes, Michael Patterson McDonald did not play. I think he's out anyway. We saw Jeremiah Newcomb, Devon Jordan. They both got 6 snaps. I'm looking at PFF's number now. You did see Reggie Powers as well as Boganowski. Both of them got 14. Actually, Reggie Powers got 6. Hardy and Boganowski got 14 snaps. You did see some James Nesta, so he got some burn out there. You did see a little bit of Okoye. I think he got like 2 snaps at the end of the game. They kind of want to save him as a secret weapon going in, but you did see some of the young corners go out there. Gunny of the Stutz Army asked a good one. What was the biggest surprise on defense under the Friday Night Lights, Coop?
I'm going to go with the command of the linebackers. And that's as the unit, not just as Danny. You saw total command. I mean, we already brought that up, that, Kobe was doing great stuff. You saw just every single one of those linebackers was out there, and they were doing great things. And so you've got 4 linebackers that you can absolutely trust. And I think that's the biggest difference, because having the type of depth is going to be what you're going to need, because it's going to keep you fresh. You're going to be rotating guys in and out. You saw a little bit with the Notre Dame A&M game. They were rotating guys in and out a significant amount. And so this is a long season, and so we're going to see guys moving in and out.
We will. And Wyatt Gilmore did play as well. He got like a couple of snaps too. So you got a lot of. I mean, Ace Hodges got some snaps, right? He got 3 good snaps. You saw a lot of young players really get out there. Taylor Wine got out there. He's a lot bigger than I thought he was going to be. So
he had the double punch penalties, 30 yards worth of penalties. So
yeah, he's the one that had all the penalties, right? I was cracking up about that pretty good. My biggest surprise, honestly, was how effective the defensive tackles were. Like, I knew that they were going to be good. I didn't realize that they were going to be that disruptive. That, to me, was the biggest surprise. I had high expectations for linebacker and secondary. They exceeded them, even though I had very high expectations. They were very much on things. I thought the defensive tackles were going to be good, and I thought the edges were going to be able to take over more, but it looked like the edges were causing disruption and the defensive tackles to where they were just kind of switching out who was going to go in there and beat up on the quarterback. We got a lot of hits in that game. Let's just put it that way. I think we finished with, they gave us 4 hits. We got like 13 hurries, so we were in his face and finished the game with 6 total sacks. So you can't beat that. All right. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. New to the channel, subscribe, rate, review, all of that jazz. Coop, it's time to go ahead and go into the side of the ball where we had the most concerns, most questions, most things that, and I'll put it this way, we had these same questions before the season started, and I think that half of them got answered. We still have some without answers. Coop, let's talk about the offensive line. All of y'all have already jumped in here with your statements. I know everybody's mad. concern, questions, whatever you want to say. I'm still on this train, baby. I still trust in beating Bo. And I say that for this reason. The biggest question that we had with the offensive line was, can they gel together quickly? And in this game, we did not get the gelling as quickly as we would have liked. So we needed Bill Bedenbaugh to start shifting things around. And this is where I had frustrations from this game. I talked about it in my morning after. Me and Coop were talking about it during the game. Had a couple fans we were chit-chatting about it with. We played an entirely scripted offense. You could tell it was an entirely scripted offense for two things. One, we threw the ball deep 4 times total. 3 of them counted. One of them was was the offsides. And so we threw it to carry on deep just, for shits and giggles. We purposely put ourselves in situations, and I feel like we did that to test things out. Now, converting on 3rd down was boo-boo. We was bad. 2-pack of awful. You only convert 1 3rd down conversion. 3 for 3 on 4th. But only convert 1 time on 3rd down. Now, we didn't have we had 12 3rd downs, but we mainly just got it all on 1st and 2nd down. We kept getting 1st. And that's how we kept scoring just about every possession. But you could tell that the goal here wasn't to just burn people deep with plays. It was getting the offensive line running certain stuff. And you noticed, Gabe mentioned this on their show, that most of the runs were to the weak side. We didn't really run the ball towards like the tight end side, which we'll talk about tight ends in a bit. Cool. I get everybody's angst with our guy on the right side, Mr. Spencer Brown. But I also need y'all to remember, Jake Taylor didn't play. Troy Everett didn't play. Miles Hickman. And Hatchett is still a little banged up on the left side, on that left arm. As much as I would like to panic, we're going to get some of those folks back next game. We get Taylor back next game, so Brown won't be starting, right? But your young players played, and they looked very encouraging. How did you feel about the offensive line overall?
So my theory on this, and this is my theory. So we know that players, folks watch us, and we know that the coaching staff watches and it goes through some of our stuff. So I say this is, I felt like we were playing the game in a 25, 30-yard box, and everything was right in there. And it was, what can Jackson do in those tight quarters? Can he make the right decision? Can he do good things in that? Mm-hmm. When you saw the offensive line play, it's first series of the game, and I tweeted it out. Caution to all fan bases on overreacting after the first play a series of your team's season. Do not lose it, because we did pretty much what we wanted. Went down the field, we scored a touchdown. Had the bomb to Farouk. It looked great. Burks looked good, running around doing some of the jet sweep stuff. But we were talking throughout the game that it just looked like the offensive line was just standing guys up. It didn't look like they were driving. Now, if that's by design, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because I think that with this new team, you need to have that as let's go out and get some guys some success. If that was not by design, and if it was just those guys just having issues, blowing folks off the ball, it seemed like the offensive line, when they really wanted to do something and when they really wanted to grind it out, like I said, with those 4th downs, they wanted to, they get it. They got it. It was good. But I also think that the offensive line is going to have issues. And what I hate about this is guys like Spencer Brown are going to need to play at some point this season. He has to get better. He is a guy who has played 24 games in the Big Ten. Now, there's mixed reviews about that time in the Big Ten, and was on a crappy team. But I don't think Bill Bedenbaugh went out and was like, I'm going to take this guy, or Michael Tarquin, but he is crap. Like, that's not what he was doing. He sees something in them. There is something to him. So I just say this with the offensive line, let's hang out. Let's hang out. And let's wait and let's see what happens when the you get Jake Taylor back. I think that I've heard a little something on Ozida. I think we're going to see a little bit more of him this next week. But second drive of the season, Hickman goes down. It's an ankle sprain. Depending on how severe and how that ankle sprain is, that could be a couple weeks, or he could be ready to go next week. I would like to see them. I don't think we're going to run for 350 yards next week. I don't think it's going to go like just completely black and white. But we do have other options to help out the offensive line. But these 3 games are the perfect games for us to be able to get things right and to come together, because I promise you, there's some dogs waiting to come to see us on September 21st, and we got to have some stuff, ready to go by that time.
So my theory behind some of the decisions that Bill Bedenbaugh made, and I'm gonna tell you this straight up, this isn't like hopium. This wasn't me trying to sunshine pump. This is me trying to look at it at the coach's perspective and hoping that this is the thought process, right? This is my theory. One, listening to Oklahoma Breakdown, Gabe kind of thought that Bates should feel a certain way. Now, Gabe was a former center, played line for Oklahoma, so I could totally understand where he would come from with this thought that Bates probably should have gone in as soon as Hickman went down. But I disagreed with that statement because I felt like it made sense to put Hatchett in there for one reason and one reason only. You got to figure out who else is going to be able to play center if you lose another one, right? We've already, Troy Everett, injury-wise, somebody asked there asked the question of why, what's up with Troy Everett? I know BV said that they expect him back in the next couple of games, within the first couple of games of the season. So he may play against Houston. He may play against Tulane. But he's been hurt all of fall camp. Mm-hmm. You just lost Hickman. Now the only center you actually know you have is Bates. Well, if that's the case, it's better to see in game speed in a game where you're beating the dog out of this team and see who can step up and play that position. You got to know who's ready for it. Who can you trust? So I think that's why you saw Hatchett go in there at center first, instead of you actually getting like a Bates to come in and play the rest of the game. They played Bates later with the mixture of the other offensive linemen we've talked about that we would like to see, like Ozada, as well as Logan Howland, EPL. We saw all them play together, which to me, the whole theory behind this is Bill Bedenbaugh knew that he had a team that he could use this against, and he needs to see who can play what now. You can only see so much in fall camp. Again, I'm not sunshine pumping. I'm not throwing y'all BS. This is truly how I feel, because I'm wondering if he's seeing that, okay, in fall camp, this is as much as I'm going to get, because as competitive as a Dominic, a Dejon Terry, a Jaden Jackson, a David Stone, etc., as competitive as those defensive linemen are, they don't want to injure their teammates because they know that side of the ball, if they're down, there's a problem, right? Like they're battling, but they know that an injury could happen that could derail everybody's season because the defense can only carry you so far. I'm sensing that he's like, all right, let me see who I can trust. And that's just my theory. Like I said, I could be 100% wrong. It could have been like he was panicking, but I don't feel like he's that type of coach. And so that's the only reason why I'm going to tell you when it comes to the offensive line, Spencer Brown, he's probably not going to play a lot, but I did see a couple of plays where he had some pull and some pancakes where he actually did good. But the bad plays were too visibly bad, visibly bad. I actually saw one come across my timeline that Brown, it was a great pull and boom, right there to the edge. He did good. But at the same time, keeping it a buck, his bad ones were just so visibly bad. We had to do better. Yeah. So that's O-line for me. Coop, anything else before we move on to the other positions?
It's got to be better. It absolutely has to be better. These guys are Division I players. This is freaking Oklahoma. That was Temple. You got to be better. That's all there is to it. So, do you think that these guys have the opportunity to go in and go to practice this week and look at the film and go, no, I think we did a good job? No, you demand better at Oklahoma. So
exactly. So I think that we'll get there. All right, quarterback. Coop. Hey man, I'm just gonna be honest. I think that Jackson Arnold's fine, and this is why I say that we've seen him throw deep. We've seen him do some good passes, right? Like the first drive, and this is where I caught that we were going scripted. Drive 1, you saw Jackson Arnold step up on the RPO, launch that bad boy to Jalil Farouk in a perfect throw. I mean, that was perfect, right over the shoulder. The defender was draping initially. Farouk got separation. Boom, pulled it in. I was like, okay, we got that. And then when he scrambled and Bauer Sharp, big brain. I'm going to tell you, Bauer has a big brain.
Yep.
Instead of running his normal drag across the field, he started drifting towards the end zone, and Jackson just dumped it right to him perfectly for the touchdown. You saw the chemistry. You saw the mind work by him. That fade route that Deion Burks caught, Deion had told Gabe that Jackson Arnold changed the play.
Yep.
He switched it up and said, this is what you're going to do. And when he did that, it was the perfect spot. So to me, it looks like we have the chemistry we need at quarterback with the players. If there's any critique I got to give Jackson on this one, 2 of those 3 sacks he got was on him.
Yeah.
One of those RPOs that he pulled down, he waited too long to throw it. He should have threw it or threw it at his receiver's feet, because it was one of those like, dog, you got to get rid of that ball. You can't hold the ball that long. You could tell, I think he was trying to let a play develop, even with the offensive lineman struggling. He, especially because the sack came in front of him, he should have been able to get going or moved to where that those didn't happen. But besides that, yeah, I think we're going to be just fine at quarterback this year. Coop, what you think?
We had the drop balls, and we can get to the recipients of such. But, I was looking, and right after, I think it was Burks' second touchdown, he already had 2 drops. He was 11 of 16 for 114 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I'll say this is, why did his passing yards not? I mean, if you give the drops, he's up a little bit, a little bit further in the yardage piece. But he didn't have a ton of passing yards because of the turnovers. We kept on being in short fields. You were talking about that a lot throughout the game. We had trouble with gaining up yards because of that. Yeah. But Jackson Arnold, if the numbers, I think he was, what was it, 17 of 25,
141.
And he had 4 drops. So if those drops don't happen, he is 21 of 25. And that's
probably
good.
200 yards.
I mean, that's good. 4 touchdowns. So Jackson Arnold, you hear it that in the Tulsa game, he made a last-second switch. The BYU game, he made a last-second switch. Arizona, he showed a lot of, gumption out there. I think that he had, the only bad pass I think he had was the one where he underthrew Brennan. And it looked like he was too worried about throwing it out of the back of the end zone. So he just kind of floated the ball. And so, here you go, is Farouk goes out. Again, you have a young quarterback. He showed that. He's got coachable things. There's nothing that you can't fix. He is, I would say the only thing that I think that I want to tell Jackson is, dude, I love that you're a dog, but the Olay shit on the sideline, like, you can't be doing that stuff, because one of those guys from South Carolina or one of those guys from Tennessee, they'll come after you a little bit harder that next time, and you might get a little bit more of a thump. Also, let's learn how to slide, buddy. Call up Kyler. Let him have a conversation with you about how to slide, run out. Do not take the larger hits. But that guy he is going to be a stud at quarterback, and that was his first true on start, and he still has yet to have a full complement of players around him, and that's what he did. He threw 4 touchdowns. If I told you all Jackson's going to have 4 touchdowns no turnovers in game 1 of his season this year. How you feeling? We all are going to be feeling pretty good about that.
No, I agree. I 100% agree with you with everything that you just said. I would not have been stressed out about Jackson Arnold whatsoever if, yeah, zero stress whatsoever if I heard that he had 4 touchdowns and no turnovers. I've been like, oh, okay, that means we had a really good game. We did very well. Zero reason to even have concern. So in that, Michael Hawkins, we're going to have fun with him this season. Just know that. That's all I got to say about that. There's not much to go. I mean, he only had 4 throws. He had a couple of runs. He had the 20-yarder that got pulled back. We're going to have fun. We're going to be fine at quarterback for a couple of years. So enjoy all of that, ladies and gentlemen. Coop, let's jump into the running back room. We're going to speed this through. We've got, we're going to go running back. We're going to wide receiver, tight end, and then we're going to go into our game awards and wrap the show up. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit that like button. New to the channel, subscribe. Wipe your feet. Rate, review, give us 5. All right, Coop.
All right.
Running back room. We started off slow, and then we got going. What you got?
Sawchuk, I don't think he got much opportunity. It looked like he wanted to run between the tackles a little bit better. You're not messing around. This is game 1. So I didn't really get to see much out of Sawchuk. Barnes looks like he's it. He looks like he is excited to be back. He looks like a more nimble Trey Sermon to me now. There was one where one of his runs, and I think it was about a 12, 13-yard run. Guy came right up in him. He had an issue his first year of play making that one guy miss, but he ducked him. He ran through a small space. He ran violently. So glad to see Barnes back out there and hitting it. Sam Franklin, he surprised me when I saw him where he was on the depth chart. I thought, well, at one point he had the longest run of the night in the second half, and so man, he's going to have a role on this team as of right now. So really excited to see Sam Franklin. But guys, Taylor Tatum, he's going to be special, and I always say I'm a big show me state type of person. You got to show me. Taylor Tatum looks different. He looks absolutely different. Was he running against backups and late in the game? Sure. But was he the second running back on the field? I think at one point he was the second running back on the field. So
yes.
I'm pretty excited about this room.
Yeah, me too. The running back room is one I'm not concerned about. Sawchuk is a volume runner. It feels like he gets the ball, he gets going, and then boom, next you know, he breaks out for 60, 70-yard run. That just feels like his game. I'm okay with that. He didn't get a chance to do that in this game. He only had 6 carries. His snap count in this game, where are you, Gavin? Sawchuk looks like he had 26 snaps total for the game, and he had 38 total snaps, including the special teams. So yeah, he had 25 in the backfield and 1 on the wideout. So 26 total snaps is what he had in this game. In that case, he wasn't going to get the ball much, so I'm fine with him. Nothing wrong with that. Taylor Tatum is it. Taylor Tatum is that dude. He is. I'm just going to say that now, and we're going to get a lot of them. We didn't get any Hicks, which was kind of wild, or X-Rob. I didn't expect X-Rob. That was a little wild that we didn't get Megwa or Caleb Hicks. That may change next week. But I think the one thing I did love, though, we talked about this. We got a 2-back set. We had 21 personnel. We had 22 personnel at one point. We had 12 personnel. We had all kinds of personnel set up. I'm just like, oh, wow. I'm not used to this. How does that happen? Oh, my goodness.
Running backs were great, though. A lot of good plays. Again, you with a little bit more opportunity, in the next 2 weeks, hopefully we get a chance to see these guys actually break it out into the to the boundary and get running. So, but yeah, you saw some great things out of Barnes, Hicks, and definitely Tatum.
Yeah, exactly. And so seeing Javonte Barnes, shout out to him. I'm gonna wrap up with him because he looks healthy now. He looks like he's ready to ball, and he looked like Cheez-It Bowl Javonte Barnes. So I think we're going to be fine in that room. We've got 3 dudes, and so did Sam Franklin. He actually looked pretty good in his few snaps. Because Sam Franklin, as well as Taylor Tatum, averaged over 10 yards a carry. Sam Franklin, 4 carries, 45 yards. He had the 30-yard run. Tatum had his 35-yard run, 5 carries, 69 yards, 13.8 yards per carry. We're going to be fine. Wide receiver room and tight ends. Hey, Coop, guess what we got?
Hold on. Wide receiver and what?
I don't know if you knew this, but we got tight ends.
Say what?
And they can catch the dang ball. And they can get open. And they can block. It's bananas because I know last year was a little questionable. We dealt with nothing but injuries. That was the room that was probably the most injured last year. And I added wide receiver and tight ends together, not because they both catch and block at the same time, more so because we know that we're dealing with injuries. Jalil Farouk is done for 6 to 8 weeks. Nick Sixx is, nicked up, no pun intended, but he's expected to be back next. Andrew Anthony's coming off the knee surgery. He did play, so he's got snaps, so we're seeing him get back into game shape. Brendan Thompson got out there. Deion Burks, you saw more J.J. Hester, who his 2 drops is going to cost him my pledge of allegiance to him, but he's got an opportunity to redeem himself because he's going to have to play. Now that Farouk is out, he's going to have to play against Houston. But we got tight ends to help take away some of the pressure there. Jake Roberts looked pretty solid out on the block. He didn't get very many throws thrown at him, but he looked good out there blocking. And Bauer Sharp's a dude. Period. I mentioned that drag on purpose with Jackson Arnold scrambling because seeing that Bauer Sharp took the ball, he took the route, and instead of staying, parallel, he started drifting towards the end zone, and you could tell he was drifting because he kept looking back to make sure no defender was right there. He kept doing this, and then Jackson Arnold threw it to him. Boom, caught it, fell. Touchdown.
Yeah.
So with that, and this is not true, Steve, I'm going to kick you out of the room. You're about to get booted. J.J. Hester is still going to – he got open. He just needs to bring the ball in. Now, I'm not going to say like PG. PG was giving him a little bit of love of, he's rusty. Even though he hasn't played in an actual game in 2 years, I can totally see that. For the most part, I need him to get them hands together. And I think he will. Supposedly in practice he did. Gibson was similar. He was doing all kinds of stuff. Was dropping it a little bit his freshman year, but then he figured out how to get it tight. I think we get that same thing out of Hester going forward. So, Coop, how'd you feel about these wide receivers and what they did? Outside of the fact that Deion Burks is a dude.
Deion Burks is him. Guys, expect this. Deion Burks is going to have 120-ish touches this year. He is going to be your main weapon. And if you're excited about that, be excited about this. Deion Burks is a smaller guy in height, and that is it. He is strong. He might be one of the strongest guys on the team. He's squatting in the 500s, benching in the 400s. I mean, dude is a baller, so he can take it. Guys, don't be first play of the game was a reverse to Deion Burks, not the jet sweep that we were all hoping for the trolling. But guys, you saw. I mean, in every single big game, you saw jet sweeps. You saw wide receiver run game. And if this running back room needs some help and the offensive line needs some help, that is, that's going to help because that's going to allow that mixing in some, running back passing game and some of the wide receiver runs on the edge. That's it. I mean, that is going to help this offensive line tremendously because the edges can't crash down. So that being said, Brendan Thompson, it looks like with this, the game plan of playing in a box, he needs to learn how to operate in the middle of the field and how to turn up field. There were one third down conversion. Yes, there was one third down conversion that we didn't get because he ran into the umpire. And so, I mean, if he just turns that upfield, he doesn't get that. But, he's used to making 50-yard plays. He's used to making these bomb plays. So, Hester, for me, you got one more shot, brother. Like, you got to do it. He's a 918 guy. Like, I want to see him do well. But whereas Jaden Gibson was a freshman, he's a redshirt senior. Like, you ain't got much more time for development and everything like that. Like, this is your time to shine. So he's going to get another opportunity. And if he does not take advantage of it, then somebody else is going to have to come in and take his place. You saw carry on with some early snaps. So I'll just say this, is you get Nick Six back. That's going to be help. We cannot sustain, any more injuries. Like, that's not, to big contributors. You saw some younger kids out there, but the tight ends, Bauer Sharp he's going to be a weapon. Jake Roberts only had, I think, 1 or 2 balls thrown his way. It was one of the kind of, I think he broke in instead of out, and Jackson Arnold misread it. They didn't have that together, but Jackson Arnold is going to have a lot of opportunity to put up numbers this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Jake Roberts. I think he had 19 snaps in the game, and 11 of them was blocked, and he's got some routes out there. He did some moving. You did see Caden Helms as well as Cade McIntyre, so both of them got a little bit of burn. But yeah, with J.J. Hester, man, I think he'll be fine. He's just going to have to get used to throws coming to him across the middle. And that's where I was talking about that scripting piece in this game. It felt like they purposely was throwing the ball across the middle, so that they can see if Jackson Arnold can get it to his guys when the linebackers don't know what the play is, right? We remember in practice, Danny Stutzman, supposedly, the rumor has it, and some of the reports from all the insiders, Stutzman was having a field day with Jackson Arnold across the middle. Like, he was whipping up all of his passes. Well, it makes sense. Stutzman has a very good idea of what's going to happen, and he has a good idea of tendencies. So when you go up against a team that doesn't know what you're doing, and you test out the ability to throw across the middle, throw some deep, posts, some fades, you get an opportunity to see if the wide receivers not only are good at their route running, but they have the capabilities of making things happen. So I feel like that is what you were getting out of that's what you were getting out of a Jackson Arnold in this wide receiver room in this game. And you're right. That was the only issue I had with Brendan Thompson in this game, is that the 2 times he caught it across the middle, one of them wasn't really on him, but for the most part, he should have caught and turned upfield. Like, catch, tuck the shoulder, brace for a hit if it's coming, and then go and get that first down. He kept trying to run around people. And I don't mind that because you're fast, but you can't keep trying to run around people. You got to go ahead and catch that bad boy and be done with it in that play. Get that first down. We had a few of those. We had a few opportunities to get that if we would have made it happen. So shout out to them though, man. I'm happy that we've got wide receivers. We've got tight end room, right? As thin as the wide receiver room is getting, Coop, I don't think that it's going to be a world ender for us. Yeah. All right, we got questions. Blake asked the question earlier. What does Houston's defensive line look like?
Not very good. It didn't
look good. Not very good. Not very good. Blood and Guns asked this good question here. Do we believe that I think the O-line is going to get better before we play Tennessee? Yes. Health is going to be the question, but I expect to see more of the young players. Now, I need y'all to keep this in mind. If they play the young players, they're going to make mistakes. If you're willing to give them the grace on them making mistakes, I am down for them being played. But if y'all plan on ripping them, if they make mistakes, then what's the point of asking for them to play? Just keep that in mind. I do think the line will be better by Tennessee. Coop?
It sure as shit better. Sorry for my language.
Fair point.
Again, I do say this. You have a lot of capability to help out the offensive line. If they're having troubles, you do. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. It was freaking Temple, and their defensive line was not good. It was very bad. And so now, if that was scripted and it was, we're not doing drive, we're not going to show much on our, on our combos, then sure. But you get guys back, you quit switching around. But I do feel like this team played in a box, and I do think that they kept everything at the line of scrimmage and almost looked by design. So I think that as you can open stuff up that, doesn't have the ability to stack the box against the offensive line. And so, you got to have to get, I do think they're going to get better. And I only base that off of every single year that Bill Bedenbaugh's been here.
Exactly. I just go off the history of him making changes and making things happen, so I sense we'll be fine there. Blake asked this one, how many different combos were played on the offensive line? Is it wishful thinking that maybe they just couldn't get a steady chemistry since it was changing so much? I think you may have a point there. I don't think that you're off base.
There's some truth in that.
Yeah, there's some truth in that. I wonder that same thing. I also think that, again, as Coop mentioned, Beatonbow is testing out as much as possible in live snaps so that we can hopefully see and find guys that are ready to jump out. Jen, great question here. Do you think we should see more of EPL? Yes.
Yep.
A lot more.
Now EPL plays right guard right now, and which is behind Fabici. I do think that there were a couple times, I think I saw somebody say it in the chat, there were a couple times that Fabici, he didn't show it on film that he did something wrong, but he didn't do something that he was supposed to, and it made Spencer Brown look a lot worse than he really was. But Spencer Brown was bad. So I think EPL is going to be a guy who gets in there and sees some more time. Like I said, I do expect that we see Heath Ozida more this coming week.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's one of those that, yeah.
You gotta show it in the off week. You gotta bear down. You gotta be great in practice. We saw it with the offensive line or the running back room last year. But again, at this point, the only reason why you use so many different combinations is because guys are needing to be coached up, and this is the time you do it, is to coach them up and hope that the next week you do better. So, talk to Eugene Brooks's pops. Shout out Mr. Brooks. I saw him at the end of the game, and so yeah, hopefully we can see BJ out there a little bit more. Iasosa, he's been working at center also. So I think that this offensive line will see some jumps, and it will not look the same next week. Because if it is more of the same, that's not good.
Right. Yeah. And I think we'll be fine. Like I said, I trust in Bill Beatonbow that he's been doing this long enough, and he points out a substantial amount of sometimes you need true film to see how people are going to actually react in those scenarios, right? So, yeah. And I think that we're going to be just fine when it comes to I think it's going to be just fine when we get closer to the Tennessee game. I think Tulane will be fine. I think once Tulane happens, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Okay, I think we're fine. That's where I'm seeing it. It's he's just trying to see what game feel. Now, let's put it this way. Let's go ahead and look at the bright side of it. Now they can go put this on tape on the wall and point to the players and say, "See what you did? Why did you do that?" Now let's talk through this. I expect a heck of a lot of that going forward. This one was a pretty solid one. So Jen asked a question around Caleb Hicks, thought he would get some snaps. Why is he not? I had the same question too. I legit thought that we were going to see a lot more Caleb Hicks. I was actually pretty surprised that he did not play in this game. Coop, did that throw you off too?
Yeah.
Or is it just
but at the same point? At the same point, like if there's 5 guys, if there's 4 guys better than him, we're in a good spot. I've been cautioning you guys this for almost a year now. We're going to see players transfer out from the program that we thought were going to be major contributors, and the guys that we never really get a chance to see to do something. I'm not saying that that's what's happening right now with Caleb Hicks, but you've got Gavin and Barnes up front. Sam Franklin came in. Tatum was the second running back overall coming in. So, if Caleb Hicks is our 5th best running back, then there's a good chance that we don't see him as a Sooner next year. Hopefully, he gets a chance to do something and gets a chance to be out there. And I think a lot of that's going to have to do with, what do we look like on the offensive line and the run setups, because I've mentioned this before, is running backs can't get off script and run to where the play is not designed to go. And if the running back room is continually going off script, then that's not good, because then you can't fix issues. You don't know exactly where the point of contention is for the offensive line and just for the offense as in general. So I hope Caleb Hicks gets his time.
Yeah, me too. I hope we get to see a little Hicks next week. That would be nice. Save TT till later in the season. You don't need him yet. Save him till later. Give me some Hicks action. Give me some Sam Franklin. I kind of want to see those two play more. But yeah, kind of sad we didn't see him in the first game. And Zeus, I had mentioned that in my theory about why you played Bates later. You don't play him and keep Hatchett in, because you gotta find out who the next center is going to be, just in case. All three of them are banged up in some capacity, because Bates was banged up in fall camp too, right? I think OU Insider reported that. Also. So Hatchett, all of them are banged up. You got to see who, once they get healthy, can step in just in case we have three guys go down. Last one here. It is Layla. How much of a difference did you guys see from just switching from the Big 12 last year to the SEC this year, and what did you see? I'm not sure what this is in reference to, but as an overall piece, I feel like the fan base really showed up and showed out for this Friday night game. I felt like we're getting close to some SEC stuff here, man. I think we are. I really do.
Yeah.
Pretty excited about that.
I mean, if you're saying like, what are we looking at the team wise? It's the team is bigger. That defensive line is bigger. I made a comment last week about, let's see here, Nick Saban's comments about us not being ready in the trenches. On the defensive side of the ball, that's not true. Yet to be proven on the offensive side.
We got 300-pounders on offense. That's the other thing. We got 300-pounders on offense. So yeah,
it's not for lack of size. We've got the size on both sides of the ball, and that's kind of what I saw is the physicality, the defensive first mindset that this team brought out in game one. Now, looking at the other teams, I know Jay, I shared this one out with you, but I think you had 4 teams give up 3 points in the first game in the SEC. 5 teams give up nothing, and then 1 give up 9, and then 4 guys, gave up a little bit more. But the top 11, was it top 11 or 12? I mean, gave up a combined, 21 points. Mm-hmm. So it's you got after it in the trenches, and I saw a lot. Here's what I will say: I saw a lot of offensive line issues across the country from a lot of different teams this week. And so, a lot of that rust, you've been playing against, the defense tendencies, the guy across from you that you're learning. And so now don't overreact on game one. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of stuff to work on.
Yep. It was on both sides. I watched some of these other SEC games, and some of the other teams had some struggles. So again, thanks for pulling up. Hit the like button. New to the channel, subscribe, rate, review. Give us 5. Coop, let's give out some awards. I want to know who you thought was your offensive MVP.
I'm going to go off script because I want to let you take our man. I'm giving it to Jackson Arnold. He came in, he threw 4 touchdowns. He ran the ball some. He showed some grit. He showed some toughness. He showed some Baker Mayfield type swag, on running the ball. He found a go-to guy. So I'm gonna give it to Jackson Arnold.
Wow, not too shabby, not too shabby. Offensive MVP for me, I mean, the easiest answer, of course, is going to be Deion Burks. He looked like that guy. I'm giving it to Bauer Sharp, though. And I'm going to give it to Bauer Sharp because it's the first time we've had the feeling of a tight end really out there showing out. Got to give it to Bauer Sharp, dog. It felt like we had a tight end that's going to really be a problem for other teams. That felt good. But, I mean, we could both give a consensus to a Deion Burks here because, he gets 3 touchdowns in his first time playing at Oklahoma, and that's not something that's not something to overlook. Burks is going to be a dude. 6 catches, 36 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's going to be a dude. And we didn't even try to go deep to him. Like, we didn't even try to create time for him to go deep. We just went ahead and, we also played on a lot of short yardage, right? It's not like we were going down the field fully. We were getting we got 6 turnovers, right? 6 possessions 5 of them became short yardage, where the 6th one was a touchdown that we returned, right? So we did everything we were supposed to do defensively and made it very easy for the offense. Defensive MVP, who you got?
G Baby. Got to go G Baby.
Ooh,
We've been waiting.
good one.
We've been waiting on him to show up in the backfield, to pursue the ball. There were comments in one of the videos right before that, really scared people a little bit. But I think my overall player of the week was Kendall Dolby, just for absolutely everybody. But I want to shout out to G Baby too, because he looked really, really good.
Yeah. That's a very good one, because everything that G Baby did in that game made me say, okay, that's what we've been looking for. For me, I'm gonna go a little bit on the off script side of this, right? I'm gonna go a little different here. Let me verify one thing real quick that I wanted to make sure I verified. That's true. Robert Spears-Jennings, right? He didn't even start the game at free safety, right? It was Peyton. It was Peyton and Billy. But we had heard that there was going to be a rotation between those three at the safety spot. And then we're going to also run some three safety formations, which is going to be nasty. But, of course, your leader in tackles was Danny Stutzman, as expected. Kip did well. But Robert Spears-Jennings not only forced a fumble, but he recovered one.
Yeah.
Baby. Who can't get excited about that?
How great is it that we're sitting here and it wasn't Danny. Danny's been the player of the week on defense for almost 2 years. Danny just does what Danny does. It's now expected. And I fear for Danny, because I want everybody who's watching this and everybody who watches games this year, don't take him for granted. This is our last year with him. And he is great. He is again, like I said, he is working himself into a Mount Rushmore of the Sooners. But there's so many different guys on defense that do so many different things well. And so again, it wasn't that the quarterback was just, throwing crappy balls everywhere. He was doing everybody was doing a great job. So yeah, just absolutely in. And we're going to see, we're excited about third string dudes on this defense at this point.
That's crazy, right? Marcus Strong walks in, plays 3 snaps, gets 2 sacks.
Exactly.
He played 3 snaps, y'all, in which I told y'all I liked Marcus Strong when we went after him. The one thing I saw about him is that, no pun intended, he had strong hands, because when he was grabbing dudes in the trenches in his videos, he wasn't letting people go, and they were pulling him, and he was, boom, bring him back. That, to me, is excitement that you can't say everywhere else. That is something that you don't get very often, and I'm excited about that. And everybody's mentioning about everybody forcing fumbles. Robert Spears-Jennings, Ethan Downs, Grayson Halton all forced fumbles. They all got credited with forced fumbles in the game. And I think there was somebody else that forced one. I can't think of who it was.
Yeah, because there's 4.
I can't think of who the 4th one was. But we got it. That's all that matters, right? And Kendall Dolby is another one that like you said.
I think it was Lewis Carter. I think Lewis Carter forced one.
Yeah, Lewis Carter did. It was Lewis Carter that caused that fumble. It was him and somebody else is in the play, but Lewis is the one that hit the shoulder and made the ball fly out. So you can't beat that. Special teams. Got to give it to Kelvin.
Jaron Kanik.
Love it, because Kanik turned it to a touchdown.
That's the fumble that Lewis Carter caused. Was he caused
the
punt returner?
The special team, the punt return.
Yeah, and so he does it, and then Kanik, I'm just happy for him, because, again, maybe that's something. Dude still has a role to play on this team, and, do you want to see Jaron Kanik flying down the field hitting you? Because, this is a guy who we can use him in a lot of different ways. But, yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So, shout out to Jaron Kanik.
Shout out to Jaron Kanik on that one, man. We had some, and, yeah, Marcus Strong is a guy, looked fast coming off the ball. We gonna get that, right? It's the trenches are what we are the most excited about. So we're gonna ravage in that. All right, we're out. Y'all go watch that LSU USC game. Enjoy college football. It's back, baby. We are stoked. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit that like button if you're new to the channel. Subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 if you're listening. Go ahead and wipe your feet. We appreciate every single one of you. It was great meeting a lot of you at the game. We hope to see you all at another game soon. So if you see us, feel free to walk up, give us a high five and all of that jazz. Don't be afraid. Coop's not terrifying in person for the most part. I mean, yeah. He doesn't have a face for radio. That's the beauty of it. He has a face for being loved on. So make sure y'all go see my boy and see me when we get out there. All right. We will chop it up with every single one of y'all midweek. We'll be back Wednesday, 9 p.m. here on the channel. We'll go live again. We'll probably go ahead and keep that the time. Yeah, chop it up soon. Peace.